Welcome. We're so happy you chose to come join us at Church of the Rock this morning. If you're new, please take this card that's in the seat in front of you and fill it out and put it in the offering plate or give it to an usher. We're about to have another little bit more worship, message from our pastors, followed by a time of prayer. We're so happy you joined us. We'd like to get to know you better. Please come see us at the Welcome Center. Good morning. I want to remind you all and invite those of you that don't know, we're having our annual meeting on January 28th. The ideal scenario for that morning would maybe look like this. If you came to second service, you could stay for a free lunch given by our youth group and then followed by the meeting at 1 o'clock. And guess what else? We're going to squeeze in directory pictures for our online directory in between the lunch and the meeting. So put it in your calendars for January 28th and come join us.
The polar vortex is here, but do I really need 7 layers of clothing? I could donate some to those in need. Mittens, gloves, hats, and socks to those in need go in this box.
You may have noticed out in the lobby the trifold board with envelopes in it. It's the annual youth group fundraiser for their convention that's coming up this spring. There are envelopes numbered 1 to 100. You take an envelope that has number 1 in it, bring it back with a $1 bill in it. If you take the $100 envelope, bring it back with $100 in it. It's the big fundraiser for all our kids, helps pay for the bus for them to get to the youth group. Please go pick an envelope up today.
Iron Sharpens Iron's men's breakfast is coming up. We need all hands on deck, men. Be there or be square.
As you know, we have our annual meeting next Sunday after the second service. There's going to be some lunch provided. So if you want to come to the second service and then stay for the meeting, you'll be able to get something to eat, and we'd love to have you be a part of that meeting. There are financial papers back on the Welcome Center, the reports for last year's finances for the church and also for the proposed budget. So some of you I know like to get into the numbers before you come to a meeting, and Rachel's made up, well, you made 10 sets back there, right? So when the 10th set is gone, we'll print you another one or print some more, but we didn't want to make a huge stack of papers at this point. They all certainly will be available to you at the meeting as well. But if you're interested in looking over the financials, they will be at the Welcome Center in the back. Well, we're in the book of Esther, and we're learning what it means for God to do a transforming work in our lives. A few weeks ago, I asked you to write down on your bulletin, the back on your note place for your bulletin, some big thing that God was doing in your life, some change, something new that was happening. Maybe it's already started. Maybe it's something you're seeing coming down the pike, and you're trying to figure out, well, how do I get there, and what do I have to do? And we talked about how it all begins with that dream, with that vision of something that either has to change or is changing whether we like it or not, or something that we really want to see change in our lives. So if you were part of that service a couple of weeks ago, think back to that thing that is there in your mind that you know is happening. It might be, for instance, that you have got a senior in high school, and when she or he graduates, then you are the empty nesters. And all those years and years and years of going from baby to preschool, to elementary school, to high school are all coming to the place where now you all step into a whole new reality. It may be something that's going on in your own physical body, something that has to get fixed, something that you have to deal with that you had never thought would be coming into your experience. And now it requires a whole new look at how life works. You may be going through turmoil in a relationship. You may be on the backside of a divorce and still trying to heal or still trying to get all of the clutter cleaned out and so that you can move forward with your life. You may be on a whole new path of healing and recovery. Whatever the case might be, you know where you are in that process. Every one of us has something on our plate that we hadn't had to deal with before. Because life moves and we get swept along with it. So I want you to think about that thing. And Pastor Rob gave you a beautiful example of what it's like to put together that new picture of who you're going to be in this next part of your life. And when he talked about Harlow and her puzzle pieces, and how she there would take the puzzle pieces and try to make them fit. And when they don't fit, I know what 2-year-olds do. They will fit. I've watched kids, I mean, and you know, you just look at it and you go, no, honey, that's not going to go. You're just going to break the puzzle. Well, you know what? Sometimes we'd rather break the puzzle than find a new arrangement, wouldn't we? And we'd like, no, it's going to be this way. And I want to take you a little further into the puzzle analogy this morning, because that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be puzzling things out. The word puzzle comes to us from the 1590s. At that point in time, over 500 years ago, the English language gave a word to the world. It was originally spelled P-U-S-L-E, puzzle, or puzzle, or however they said it. And it meant to perplex, to bewilder, to confound. Something that you might do or someone might do to confuse everybody else. A little later, that word became a noun, the word puzzle, and it describes something that's difficult to understand or make sense of. Well, that new thing on your plate, that new situation you're dealing with, if you haven't been there before, it's probably a puzzle. It's something that you're thinking about and that you're not sure how it could possibly work. In 1760, an engraver and map maker named John Spilsbury glued a map of Europe to a piece of wood, a thin piece of wood, and then he cut out all the countries. Now, he did this so that kids could learn where all the countries were. It was a geography lesson. And that was the first recorded jigsaw puzzle. It goes all the way back that far. Over time, of course, then these puzzles became something that all of us have put together at one time or another. You've probably had that situation. Maybe it was Christmas. Somebody gave the family a 1,000-piece puzzle. And some of the family are going, hooray! And the rest of the family is going, oh no. How long will that thing take up the dining room table? But there on the front is a picture. Oh, it may be a castle, or it may be a mountain, or it may be a scene of the beach, or it may be a crowd of people, or a reproduction of a famous work of art. Whatever it is, there's a picture. Something worth assembling all the pieces so that you can look at that when you're done. But of course, inside the box, there are those 1,000 pieces. And in order to do this puzzle, you have to enter into the chaos of 1,000 pieces that are not going to put themselves together. You dump them out. And then you start doing what God did when He created this world. You start bringing order to that chaos. Now, I don't know how you do puzzles, but the first thing I do is turn them all over. And they're no good looking at the back side of the puzzle piece, right? And the second thing is to find the edges, right? Is that what you do? I found a corner. Which corner? I don't know, but it's a corner. And then we start hooking them all together until you get this great big edge with nothing inside. And then little islands of meaning start to emerge, right? You get like, oh, I think this goes with this, and I think I found the top of the mountain. And it's about that big. And it's like, well, save it. Don't take those apart. And then you find a tree, and then you find a crowd, and gradually the picture comes together. You know, and I know, there are no shortcuts to putting together a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. You can't just sort of wave a magic wand over the table and, you know, everything comes together. You just have to work it out. And now what Harlow had to do was make one piece fit another. Well, do that 1,000 times, and they all have to fit each other. And so literally, when we put a puzzle together, we're trying hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different connections, maybe by sight, maybe by picking them up and trying to put them together. It only emerges slowly. Half a tree here, part of a cloud there, a little bit, and the picture comes together. Finally, we get to that great moment when there's only one piece left. And it's pretty obvious where it goes. I mean, you're looking at that puzzle, and there's that one spot. And we've been trying to fill that spot for like 14 days. And somebody says, here it goes. And then it's sort of like watching your odometer go over 100,000, right? You pop that in there, and we're done. Now, sometimes life presents us with its own version of the 1,000-piece puzzle. There are some differences, however. Instead of your puzzle coming in a box with a glossy picture on the front, you may or may not even have a picture of what the puzzle is supposed to look like after it's all assembled. What's the new you going to look like? What kind of person will you be? What will you be doing? What will you be doing for work a year from now? My oldest daughter sent her and her husband sent their third child off to college this past September. Talk about a puzzle. And my daughter, who is usually very confident and strong and right on top of things, we would talk, and if I would say something about, so what do you think you'll be doing after Caleb goes to school? Eyes would just fill up. She didn't know. She spent all summer figuring it out, investigating different things that she could do. She said, I had the perfect job. I taught my kids. I homeschooled them for 12 years. 12, actually for 15 years because of all the kids. She said, I never wanted to not have that job. Now I have to do something new. And she didn't really have a picture of what it would look like. She had some glimpses. Imagine doing a 1,000-piece puzzle and all you got was 5 minutes to look at the front, the box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can't see it anymore. Put the puzzle together. And isn't that what life is like sometimes when we go into that new thing? Some of us may have a very clear idea. We just know what we're going to do. Others of us are going to have glimpses, fleeting glimpses, as God gives us enough to see how to do the next part of the puzzle. But life presents us with this challenge. And those pieces, those thousands of pieces, represent the bits and pieces of our lives, of our relationships, of our circumstances, of our abilities, of our interests, of our fears. All the stuff that is you sometimes just seems to get dumped out on the table. They may have all been arranged to make what you felt was a good picture. But now they don't make that picture anymore. They're all jumbled and dumped out on the table in front of us. In order to move forward in our lives, we have to have a vision of the new picture of who we're going to be. And only one person knows the answer to that question, and that is the God who created you. He sees the person that you are and that you're going to be. And if we can trust Him, that He's got the picture, whether or not He shows it to us all the time, probably if He showed us the whole big picture, we'd be too overwhelmed to even try to do the next thing He has for us. But we can trust that He's going to show us as much as we need to be able to move forward. And then we must take the pieces, all those bits and pieces of our lives, the relationships and the fears and the wishes and the dreams and the hopes and the abilities and the circumstances, take all of those and put them together to make that new picture, to become that new person God has pictured us to be. The word for this process of discovering and embracing a new identity is transformation. It's not just about changing a few little things. It's not just about trying out a new hairstyle or getting your nails done a different way or buying a different pair of shoes. We're talking about being a different person on the inside, about seeing life a different way. Transformation. And as I've said, and you heard Rob say it last week, transformation doesn't happen all at once. Let's say that together. 1, 2, 3. Transformation doesn't happen all at once. Okay. There's no magic wand. There's no, I went to sleep and when I woke up, God had changed my whole circumstance. It happens one insight at a time. As we assemble the old, familiar bits and pieces of ourselves to make a brand new identity. It's one insight at a time. Sometimes it's one breath at a time that we take that journey into that new, becoming that new person that God has called us to be. Daunting? Absolutely. If this isn't daunting, you don't understand what's going on. The good news is that we're not alone in the process. God has promised to be present with us every step of the way. He's going to show us that final picture, the bits and pieces of it that we need to know. He helps us think outside the box to discover how all the pieces fit together. And He won't give up on us until the picture is complete. And as Paul writes, we have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge in the image of its Creator. That's what God is doing. He is reshaping you and me to be like Jesus, to be like what humans were meant to be in the first place. So what's this process look like? Well, let's go back and watch as Queen Esther allows God to use her to step into her brand new identity. Esther's cousin, Mordecai, had a vision of God rescuing his people from certain destruction. That's what Mordecai could see on the cover of the puzzle, if you will. He could see what God wanted to do. And he could see that that rescue was going to come through none other than his niece, his cousin, Queen Esther. He couldn't see the whole plan. I'm sure he didn't understand how it was all going to work out. But he saw enough to know Esther is the key to rescuing the Jewish people. That was the big picture that Mordecai could see. But what about Esther? Well, when she dumped the puzzle pieces on the table, Mordecai's vision seemed totally impossible. Think about the pieces she had to work with, and I'm just going to pick out 3 of them. One of the pieces was the king, her husband, yes, but he was the most powerful man in the land. When he made a law, not even he could take it back. And he had been duped into commanding that the Jews be exterminated on a given day. So here she has one part of her life, her most important relationship, the king. And the king has been duped into destroying the Jewish people. That would seem like a puzzle piece that doesn't fit this puzzle we're trying to make. Don't you ever have that feeling when you're going through a puzzle and at some point there's one stubborn piece and you look at it and go, I think they got the wrong box for this one. This is supposed to be in that other one. And you just like, get the scissors, quick, we can fix this, you know. And Xerxes must have felt like that. But there was another puzzle piece in her life. A man called Haman. Haman had been promoted to become Xerxes' right-hand man. So these guys were like a team. And he had a personal grudge against Mordecai. He came up with the idea of exterminating the Jews. He was therefore the archenemy to everything that she stood for and would have her killed just as easily as he would have had all the Jews killed. So those are the 2 most important puzzle pieces in her life. The third puzzle piece was herself as queen. Now Esther may have had a crown on her head, but she had no rights. She had no power. She served at the king's bidding. To even approach the king uninvited meant certain death unless he tipped the scepter toward her, decided he was having a good day, didn't really want to kill her today, and said, yes, come into my presence. Hadn't her predecessor, the Queen Vashti, been deposed for simply refusing to come to dinner? So what could she do when the 2 most powerful people in her life were agreed that the Jews must die, and she sat off in the harem waiting for maybe getting a call that this might be a day the king might want to see her? She would have looked at those puzzle pieces, and from a human point of view, she would have said, these don't fit together to make anything good. These are puzzle pieces from a story I don't even want to go to. However, Esther did what Pastor Rob talked about last Sunday. She began finding new ways to put the puzzle pieces together to make a new picture. She decided, instead of trying to take on each of these 2 men separately, she was going to put everything together, but in a totally unexpected way. She started by asking all of her countrymen and countrywomen, all the Jews in her city of Susa, to fast and pray. In other words, she said, this isn't going to happen unless God is in control. I'm going to be able to do a few things, and hopefully He'll show me some steps to take, but I can't control how this all works out. I'm going to put my trust in Him. And then, as you heard last week, she risked the death sentence by going uninvited to the king. We read in chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, on the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the hall facing the entrance. And when he saw Queen Esther standing in the court, he was pleased with her and held out to her the gold scepter that was in his hand. So Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. The king asked her what she wanted, and her answer was, come to a banquet that I prepared for you and Haman. She decided to bring the 2 most powerful and most dangerous puzzle pieces together with herself so that there would be in a room just the 3 of them interacting. And then she was going to watch and see how God was going to make a new puzzle out of this. Now, we get to the banquet, which happened evidently very quickly. And at the banquet, she made a second request, verse 8. The king said, well, what do you want? Now we have this banquet. She said, if the king regards me with favor, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare for them. And then I will answer the king's question. See, Esther brought together these two most dangerous men in her life. She had not just one banquet, but two banquets. Why two? Well, for one thing, she was creating suspense. The king said, what do you want? Come to dinner again. I'll tell you what I want. So she's got the king waiting on her words instead of her waiting on the king's words. She's relating to the king. She's creating a whole new relationship. If you read back in the story, she had been 30 days in the harem, no call from the king. She didn't know if she'd ever see him again in her whole life. She knew that to go find him could mean he doesn't like me and I'm gone. But she took the chance to try a whole new approach. And now she's got the king waiting on her words. And meanwhile, Haman feels extra special since he's been invited not once, but twice to a private dinner with the king and the queen. And he's starting to feel like he can do no wrong. He is the man in charge. And you know what Esther's doing? She's just fanning the flame. A little flattery here, a little flattery there. And Haman's head is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. He goes out of the first banquet and sees Mordecai. He gets angry, comes home, tells his wife. His wife says, well, why don't you just put up a gallows 75 feet high, and at the next time you see the king, ask for permission to get rid of Mordecai, and then your enemy will be out of the way. Obviously, you are on a roll. You've got this thing under control. But God was at work. Xerxes couldn't get to sleep that night after the first banquet. So he decided to do something probably to try to get himself to go back to sleep. He said, read me the chronicles of my reign. Maybe if somebody read long enough, he'd drop off again. Verse 2 of chapter 6, as the reading was going on, it was found recorded there that Mordecai had exposed Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's officers who guarded the doorway, who had conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. Now, why do you think it was that King Xerxes couldn't sleep that night? Could it be that the Holy Spirit just didn't let him get comfortable? Why did he suddenly say, I need to read the chronicles of my kingship? I mean, good grief, that's how you honor, buddy. Out comes the scroll and they start reading this stuff. And how does it come that they are right here talking about the same Mordecai that Haman wants to kill tomorrow? Thank you very much. And the king realizes, you know what? That guy saved my life. I never did anything special for him. So the next morning he calls in Haman and he says, Haman, what do we do for somebody who the king delights in? Somebody the king wants to honor. Now remember, Haman's head is about this big at this point. He's been to dinner with the queen. He's going to have another dinner with the queen. He is like the big dude. And he says, oh, he's got to be talking about me. Verse 6 says, now Haman thought to himself, who is there that the king would rather honor than me? Esther's flattery had done its work. So he says, well, I think that this person should be dressed in the king's royal robe, should be put on a king's horse, and should be led around town with everybody cheering for him. And the king says, sounds great. I want you to do that for Mordecai. He never saw it coming. Never saw it coming. But you see, the puzzle was beginning to start to fit together. To make a totally different story from anything Haman had ever imagined. And then we come to the second banquet. And this is where Esther snaps all the pieces together to make a whole new picture. She makes her third request. Esther chapter 7, verses 3 to 4. Then Queen Esther answered at the king's request, if I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition. And spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. If we had merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet, because no such distress would justify disturbing the king. Well, the king has absolutely no idea that his wife is Jewish. He's probably forgotten that he already ordered to exterminate the Jews anyway. And when he hears that his wife, the queen, who he is waiting on now, he's been waiting like 3 days to get this request from her, that she is in mortal jeopardy, he responds with outrage. Verse 5, King Xerxes asks Queen Esther, "Who is he? Where is he, the man who has dared to do such a thing?" See the power of having all the puzzle pieces together? Esther said, "An adversary, an enemy, this vile Haman." Well, the king leaves the room in a rage. And when he comes back, Haman is begging for his life, has fallen on the couch that the queen is lying on, putting himself in a compromising position, to say the least. And so the king takes one look at Haman there, probably partially draped over his wife, and says in verse 8, "Will he even molest the queen while she is with me in the house?" At that point, the servants cover Haman's head so that the king will never see his face again. And he ends his life on the very gallows that he prepared for Mordecai. When Esther agrees to risk her life to save her people, she begins a process of personal transformation. You see, instead of becoming a victim of Haman's plot, or instead of hiding and trying to just save herself and hope nobody ever figures out who she really is, instead of just going on with the old picture, she becomes the primary actor in a whole new story. It's interesting to read the book of Esther and notice that she's fairly passive right up to the time when Mordecai says, "Who knows, maybe it was for such a time as this that you became queen." And she's trying to figure out whether can I do this? Can I not do this? That's how we feel when we're trying to put our new part of life together. And we're saying, "God, I can't do this. I can't be that person. I don't have the skills. I haven't been there. I never thought this would happen to me." When we take the journey that God has for us, like Esther did, all of a sudden that shifts. And Esther becomes the prime mover in this story. From chapter 5 on, it's all about Esther calling the shots. She's become the queen. She's become, certainly as much as possible, the peer to King Xerxes. Her decisions and her strategy move the whole story forward. You see, she steps into this new identity. She chose to leave behind her fears and her self-interest. She reveals her Jewish identity rather than hiding it, even though she knew that there was a royal decree from the person she was talking to that all Jews be exterminated. So she looks right at her husband, who said, "Yes, exterminate all the Jews," and goes, "I'm Jewish. What are you going to do about it?" That's basically what happened. And you see, she brought together the king, who obviously had been duped, and her mortal enemy, puts them in a place where she can disarm them and set the stage for justice to be served. It didn't happen all at once. She had to let the pieces fit together one by one. She took the risk. She burned her bridges behind her. She trusted God to move her forward. And because of her becoming a new person, her people are saved. Without her, there'd have been no Jesus. There'd have been no experience of salvation for you and for me. God's plan would have been completely frustrated and thwarted. Now, God would never let that happen. But the way He moved it forward was to work in the life of one person who made all the difference. You are that one person in your world. In that part of our society where you live, that set of relationships that you have, those kids that you're parenting, those parents that you're relating to, those workmates that you go to work with every day, those neighbors in your street, those people that you see on the street and that you interact with, you're part of that world, and God has a role for you to do that no one else can do. That's why, look, we're all different, and that means that God saw something in each one of us with our unique set of gifts and skills, our unique set of situations and backgrounds, the bad things that have happened in our lives as well as the good things that have happened. He looked at all those puzzle pieces and he said, there's only going to be one puzzle that looks like Roland Ludlam. There's only going to be one that looks like Rob Awill. There's going to be one that looks like Linda LaHaye. They're all going to be different. And each one is essential to my plan. Each one is essential to my plan. Whatever the case, remember, God knows what the new you looks like. And He has put all the pieces you need in the box. Now, here's something else for you to say. You're going to say, I have all the pieces I need. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I have all the pieces I need. Now, this is the huge fallacy, because typically we think, well, in order to do the next thing in my life, I need something I don't have. I'm going to tell you right now, you don't need something you don't have. God put all the pieces in the box. Oh, Pastor, you're crazy. You're wrong. Why, I can't make the house payment. I can't buy that car. I can't get my kid through school. I need more money. Listen, you have all the pieces you need. You just haven't seen how God puts that all together. Is there a need for greater financial provision? I'll promise you, it's in the box somewhere of things being rearranged in a different way. Maybe it means you do your budget differently. Maybe it means you get a different job. Who knows what it all means? God has ways of doing things we can't imagine, but we are not to just sit there and go, okay, God, I'm not doing anything until, right? Or I'm just going to go buy lottery tickets until I hit the big one, and then I'll let you put my life together. Good luck. Look at the lives of people who won the lottery. Unfortunately, many of their stories are not the picture you would want for your life. It's not just a magic thing. So, once again, God put all the pieces you need in the box. You just haven't seen how they fit together. And you know what? We're going to fight with this. I look at my box. God, I don't see why that piece is in there. Why do I have to deal with this thing over here? Why do I have to deal with this health issue over here? Why do I have to deal with this situation there? I don't see how those fit together. You know what He says? When you're ready to work on the puzzle, you'll see how they fit together. I mean, God didn't make a mistake when He put you here. He didn't leave a piece out. Did you ever do that puzzle thing once again? The 1,000-piece puzzle that only has 999. And you search the house high and low, right? You're underneath all the dressers and you're under the rug, and it's got to be here somewhere. Because, you know, a puzzle missing one piece is not much of a puzzle. He didn't leave any pieces out. He didn't ever create a 1,000-piece picture of you and short you one piece. He never took a piece that was supposed to be in somebody else's puzzle box and put it in your box. He just doesn't mess up. Did you know that? God doesn't mess up. He always gets it right. But He's that patient Father who's willing to sit there at the table with us for hours, months, years, and help us put together a picture He already sees. And in fact, instead of saying, here, let me do that for you, pop, 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 He lets us explore. When we get discouraged, He encourages us, and He'll point us, no, you know, you don't want to go that way. Why don't you get all the such and such together, and we start to work on it, and maybe some friends come over and help us. How many of you have had somebody help you figure out you? I know I have someone who helps me every day, and without her, it would not have happened. Because we do this puzzle thing together. But you have all the pieces you need. With God, problems become possibilities. With God, obstacles become opportunities. He's there to help you see yourself and your situation in that new way. He will transform you, but only if you're willing to work on the puzzle. So I want to encourage you. When you're looking at the stuff, say to yourself, whatever it is, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the stuff you like about what's going on in your life, the stuff you hate about what's going on in your life, look at all of it and say, pieces of a bigger puzzle. I just don't know how they fit together yet. Don't throw them out. Worst thing you can do, if you're putting the puzzle together, is say, I don't think we need this one. Ha ha, you don't need it now, but you'll need it later. You don't know where it fits? Set it aside. Go work on the parts that you can fit together. One day, God's going to show you how even the things that don't fit at all in your life picture fit in. Is that easy? No, it's hard. How hard? Hardest thing you ever do. How hard is that? Hardest thing you ever do. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's about 1,000,000. It's hard. Because we look at it and go, this doesn't fit. I don't want this. This can't be. God knows. God knows how the pieces fit together. We can trust Him. Don't have to be in a hurry. Just keep moving forward. And we're going to see next week as we finish this series how to take that change and make it stick. How to take that puzzle and what do? You spread the white glue over it, right? So the pieces don't come apart. Be able to put it in the frame. So that what we've done all this hard work, we don't just let it all unravel, but instead we're able to function in a way that helps our whole world move forward. Let's bow our heads together. And Linda, come on back up with your team, if you would, please. Ask our prayer team to come down. And as they do, I want to just encourage you. This is a time for us to reach out and just even have a brief time of prayer and a brief time of sharing with someone else. God wants to talk to you. He wants to help you. There may be one little piece right now that you're stuck on. You're just in that whole life process where you are right now, and I just don't see how this and this fit together. This is just holding me up. Well, that's a place you want to go. And just say, to have someone come and pray with you even this morning, to ask the Lord to show you how would that look when the Holy Spirit gets a hold of it. And the thing that you thought didn't fit suddenly becomes the keystone to everything else. And you go, oh, wow, now it makes sense. God delights in that process in our lives. So prayer time for yourself, for others, for people that you care about, situations, just asking God to reorganize and reorder a jumbled world with us as the starting point. Let's stand together. And come down for prayer if you need to, or turn to a friend and ask them to pray with you as we spend this time. Thanks, Linda.